Marc Mayer took the helm of the National Gallery of Canada 10 years ago. In that time, he transformed the Canadian and Indigenous Galleries, helped create the Canadian Photography Institute, and stick-handled through some tricky politics along the way. Tomorrow is his last day on the job, and so we're pleased to welcome Marc Mayer back to our studio to reflect on the job he did. Nice to have you in that chair again.
Thank you, Steve.
We had in our intro, as you heard, some of the highlights of your time, but I want to hear it from you. What are you going to remember as you think back, let's say a decade from now, on the decade that was?
Wow, there's too much to remember, actually. We built a terrific network of philanthropists across the country to support contemporary Canadian art, something we didn't have before, and that was extremely helpful. I'm proud of an awful lot that we accomplished. The pumping up the volume on Indigenous art, of course, was something that was very important to me personally. And we did well in not only with the Indigenous Quinquennial, where Canadian Indigenous artists and Indigenous curators could play a leadership role in the world, but also in the Canadian and Indigenous Galleries, where we tell a story that goes back thousands of years instead of just hundreds.
You did old school stuff too, though. Caravaggio was a fantastic show.
It was a beautiful show. We did quite a few old school shows. The rehabilitation of Elisabeth Louise Vigée-Lebrun, for example. She wasn't a household name. We took a big risk. I think we were quite clever in how we staged that, make sure it opened in France first, and then in New York, and then the press, the great press that preceded the show, meant that it was a big hit in Ottawa. But she was the finest portrait painter of her generation and unfairly neglected, I think, in all those centuries since then.
One of the fun things you have got to do in your job is walk that tightrope between dealing with public money and private philanthropy money. And I'm curious as to which is more difficult to deal with.
Oh, well, you always have to put up with something. They're both challenging in their ways. You have to maintain your autonomy. Of course, that's very important. But I don't know. I've been doing that for so long. I wouldn't be able to tell you what's more challenging.
Well, let's try this then. Complete the following sentence. The most important thing I learned in my decade on the job at the National Gallery in trying to solicit big money from wealthy philanthropists is what?
You have to get them engaged in the project that is the museum. Some of them are already engaged and some of them aren't. You're in a way a salesman for the idea of the National Gallery of Canada and what it can do and how you can make a difference. I have been very pleased at how generous Canadian philanthropists have been to the gallery. On my going away party, we raised $3 million that one night. That turns heads even in the United States, where philanthropy is kind of very well established. You just have to be honest, be direct, be yourself, and tell people why you need their help. And you'll find that very often, the other secret is they have money to give. You're not asking them to take money away from their children's university fund. Very often, philanthropists have got some money aside in a foundation, and they're looking for great projects.
But you're one of 1,000 people who want it, so you've got to make them fall in love with you.
That's right. Well, fall in love with the project, with what we're doing, and trust also that we're going to deliver on the promise. This is what we said we're going to do with your money, and then that you've got a history of doing what you said. You build trust, and then other philanthropists talk to their friends, and next thing you know, you're a place that's got integrity.
Ready for a bit of a weird question?
Okay.
As if the previous ones haven't been. On a particular evening, you have to choose between having a meal with a great and famous artist, a very wealthy patron, the likes of which you just described, or the Federal Minister of Culture. Who wins?
Well, we don't have a Federal Minister of Culture.
Okay, what's the title?
We've got the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Heritage, yes.
I think, depending on what it is I want out of all of those people, if I want to do a retrospective that's going to bring a lot of people and get a lot of kudos for the gallery, it might be the famous artist. They might not be a particularly pleasant person. It depends what I need in the short term, because I'm making this choice not for me personally, but for the job. For the
I guess the question was meant to speak more to, in your heart of hearts, personally, away from the job, regardless of what your professional agenda might be, who's the kind of person there you'd rather hang out with?
It's a tough question. It's not a weird question.
That's why I'm asking it.
It's a really tough question because I very much enjoy the company of artists, but I also enjoy the company of philanthropists. You know, Jordan Peterson, who you've had on this show, has said many times that philanthropists and artists are pretty much the same animal. They're big risk takers. They're creative, etc. So it would be a toss-up. Depends on I know I'm not answering your question. Depends on who the specific artist is or who the specific philanthropist is.
Okay, fair enough. During your time, though, the one person you didn't mention in that last part of that answer there was the politician. And in your time, you did have to deal with, I think, 4 or 5 ministers of Canadian heritage from both governing parties, Conservatives and Liberals. So I kind of want your insight on this. What is more important in terms of trying to connect with a particular minister? Having a better understanding of what makes that person, him or herself, tick, or having an understanding of what the political party they represent and their values call for?
That's another interesting question. I'm not really selling to a specific person. What I'm trying to get them to understand is if they want to know what an art museum is and how to do it right, I'm their man. I'm their resource, as it were. So there again, I'm promoting our mission and the work that we're doing, and not really thinking about who they are in a way. I'm not that kind of a salesman. So I don't really customize it depending on the minister, I have to say.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't have done it that way.
Well, let me try it this way then. The conventional wisdom holds that liberals are sort of artsier than conservatives. Is that true?
Yes and no. I mean, it depends on the conservative.
Yes.
Some of our biggest supporters are conservatives. Conservatives believe in culture, of course. They believe in heritage. Not all of them, because there are many different stripes for conservatives, as there are for liberals as well.
Given what politics has to offer, what would be your best possible version of the person holding the heritage portfolio? What qualities do they entail?
That they be passionate about culture in general and passionate about the federal portfolio. These are public policy instruments, and how we can make Canada a better place by using those institutions, especially by letting those institutions do the work the way they're supposed to do. By using, I don't mean by manipulating, I mean by empowering those institutions, because we will make Canada a better place if we have more resources. And that's pretty much my answer to that question.
It's your second last day on the job, so you can go out on a limb here. If you say something that's going to tick somebody off, what are they going to do? Fire you a day early? Of all the ministers you had to deal with, who did you hit it off with the best?
Oh, that's a tough one. And I actually really enjoyed Shelley Glover. I think she was a lot of fun.
Manitoba Conservative.
Yes, that's right.
Former cop, too, I was.
She was a lot of fun, and she was very complimentary. I remember I said a few things to her at a dinner party, and she kept repeating them to me every time she saw me. She said, I haven't gotten that out of my head, that this is really, this is a treasure house, and that all of these things are meaningful, and if you know what they are, it's a very noisy place. And she really loved that, because museums tend to be more quiet. But if you know what you're looking at, they're noisy. All these objects are vying for your attention. No, I enjoyed her, and I knew Mélanie Joly for many years, had known her before, so we're very, very friendly. Minister Moore also had his qualities. I mean,
James Moore from the West Coast.
Yes, and people have mistaken me for Minister Rodriguez. Apparently, we go to the same
You guys
barber.
do look a bit alike, actually, yes, with the scruff.
So we're not going to get to work together, but I've enjoyed the few moments I've had with him.
That was a delightfully political answer. You got everybody mentioned there. That was well done. Okay, let's have a little less fun here. I want to talk about probably the biggest controversy that happened on your watch, and you know where I'm going here. You captured a lot of headlines because you tried to, how do I sum this up delicately? You tried to sell one painting in order to raise some money to buy another painting that you guys really desperately wanted. And ultimately, that did not happen. Why, in your view, did it not happen?
Well, the painting that we desperately wanted was a painting that we desperately wanted to prevent from leaving Canada. That was important, and that was the Jacques-Louis David, St. Jerome hears the trumpet of the last
That's
judgment.
the one on the right, as we look at it now.
There it is. And it's an important picture. It's a very important picture. But the province of Quebec found a way to get it by what it seems like today, without paying for it. I hope there's an exchange. I think it's important that private property gets paid for.
But let's understand,
we don't
you
know
wanted
where
to
it
sell that Eiffel Tower by Marc Chagall on the left. You wanted to sell that one in hopes of raising some money to buy the one on the right.
That's right.
But the one on the right was in Quebec, and Quebec did not want to let it leave its borders, I guess, right?
Right.
What do you do about that?
Well, you say, okay, if you're going to be able to protect it, I don't know if the law actually, the way it stands now, meant that they could protect it indefinitely. I'll let them figure it out. It's not leaving Quebec. We'll see how that plays out. But the other picture was something that had a clean bill of health to leave Canada. It's a less important picture. It was less useful to us in our collection. And we thought it was a prime candidate for deaccessioning because it hadn't really been of much use for quite some time.
The whole thing, obviously, is an object lesson in the politics and the values in the province of Quebec. And I want to read a little excerpt here from Alan Freeman in iPolitics, who wrote just almost a year ago, "But there was never any way that David was ever going to leave Quebec City. If Mayer had any clue about how culture and politics work in this country, he should have known that he would never be able to get his paws on a piece of Quebec heritage and move it across the Ottawa River." Okay, never mind what he thinks of you, but is he right about the whole Quebec cultural nationalism piece of that?
No, it was hanging on the walls of the National Gallery for 18 years. It crossed that imaginary border many times. It's not in Quebec City, it's in Montreal. It's private property. And by Quebec law, the minister has 60 days to pay the owner the asking price before it leaves the province. So I don't know how they've managed to finagle it this way. I'm just grateful it's not leaving Canada. It's been associated with Canada for a century. And that was important that it stay here, so that's good. And our picture, an awful lot of people got very exercised about that. It's also not leaving Canada anytime soon, I don't think. I do regret that we weren't able to sell it because there are other things that we can do with a healthy acquisition budget. For example, correct the lacuna of historical Indigenous art. We have to borrow everything for our Canadian and Indigenous galleries. We have very, very little of our own. And that's an enormous amount of work. And it's very expensive these days to buy these things. They're precious. They're considered precious all over the world. So there was plenty to do with the money.
As a case study, though, in sort of how to handle something, it's a fascinating case. I'm sure you didn't think so when you were in the middle of it, but as you look back on it 8, 9 months later, what did you learn about the whole thing?
Oh, we had some fun, Steve, with that. That was, that was a wild ride. I learned that, well, first of all, we did the right thing for the right reasons, and we did it the right way. There were, 40,000 pages that left the building for access to information, and the most people could come up with was a letter that wasn't responded to from the ministry. What we learned was the timing was horrible, and that you can't really, I'm pretty good at defending myself, particularly when I'm right, and that there's a big team of people behind me, like the trustees, like our advisors, etc. But we couldn't defend ourselves in this particular situation to explain why this was a prime candidate for deaccessioning, because it was for sale. So you're not going to start denigrating something.
Hard to talk down that, because you get less for it. Yeah.
That was something we didn't think through. The timing was ugly. We needed to get into the spring sales in order to have the money. The church was shopping the work around to major museums around the world, and our colleagues are sending us emails going, "What are you guys doing? Are you really going to let this leave your country?" Of course we weren't, so it was smart of them to ask, because you can complicate things for a painting that's going to be sold off to another country. We can block it, and they've gone to all that trouble for naught. So it's a very complicated file. It's probably not over yet, and it'll be interesting to see what some of the other deaccessioning projects that are going on in Canada.
Let me do this follow-up, because you've been in the museum world for, what, 3 decades now? Maybe a little
Around
more?
33 years, I think.
33 years, okay, a little more than 3 decades. During that time, have you experienced an increase of political pressure on museums to adhere to any particular agenda over another?
No, certainly not in Canada. This is something that I want all Canadians to know. Arm's length, our system works. It works. Undue pressure is not something that I've known. The scary aspect of working in Ottawa is really, a lot of journalists are trying to embarrass the government by using you to embarrass the government. That's the scary part. But sometimes politicians don't fully understand the concept of arm's length, but you can correct them fairly quickly, and with impunity. Our system works.
Let's go back 3 decades. I mean, during the Mulroney years, The Voice of Fire by Barnett Newman. We talked about it the last time you were here. That became an enormous political football that as he was described at the time, a pig farmer from Manitoba, Felix Holtman, a conservative backbencher, thought, why are we paying more than $1 million for 3 stripes? You know, That was a populist attack from the right, I guess. Do you see populist attacks from the left in your work as well?
Yes, there are certain things. So, for example, why are we spending a lot of money on art when we're laying people off? We lived through that in the first part of my mandate. We simply didn't have enough money, and we couldn't have a deficit. So we had to leave people off. We had to sort of shrink the National Gallery. We very much regret it. We miss quite a few of those people. We need those jobs back, and I hope that my successor is able to convince the government that in order to be the National Gallery of Canada that people expect, we're going to need more resources, we're going to need more people. So people would say, why are you laying people off and still buying art? Well, there's separate pockets. We can't mix them. By law, there's separate votes in Parliament. So they're that sort of things. It's all based on ideology, but there's no real, I can't think of a critique about a specific work that we acquired that perhaps the left thought was beneath our standards. And these things actually, I don't think, have a partisan genesis, really. I think that there are plenty of people on either side of the spectrum who disagree that the Canadian taxpayer should be supporting a major art institution with a healthy acquisition budget. And then there are people right across the spectrum who think, yes, absolutely, we need one of those. And it depends on whether or not art is meaningful to them in their own lives.
Well, okay, that might lead to this next question, which is, my hunch is, people, when they're in Ottawa and they go to your gallery, do so for a host of reasons, one of which might be to actually get away from the politics of Ottawa and see beautiful things. Having said that, is all art, at the end of the day, political?
I like to think so. It is a political act to say, I made this and I want you to look at it. For me, that's a political act. Some people think that that's getting a little bit too philosophical, a little bit too literal about it. But the wonderful asylum that a great art museum is, it's an asylum from cliche. We trade in cliches. That's our currency, and not only in this society, but pretty much all over the world, and for various different reasons. But we like to think of ourselves, a great art museum, as a cliche-free zone. Yes, there may be similar subject matter, but the great works are, the artist is not using a cliche approach to this portrait or this landscape, etc. So it's a wonderful way to find real communication, real meat in the communication between someone who died thousands of years ago or someone who is your next door neighbor. Museums can serve that. It's an asylum from cliche.
Sure. Clearly you have this, I think you talked about two pockets, and you have this one pocket for acquisition, and you wish there was $1 billion in that pocket, but there isn't. So you got to make hard choices about what you're going to buy and what you're not going to buy. Yeah. In which case, what are you looking for when you want to acquire something for the museum?
You're looking to find objects. We collect objects. We're not stamp collectors, and there are certain journalists that was recently mentioned. Sometimes I think he thinks we're stamp collectors. We're looking for specific works that represent the best and the most useful kind of object to represent the best of an artist who's really distinguished herself in art history or in the current environment. Someone who is moving the story forward of human genius in the specific area of the visual arts. That's what you're looking for.
How much do you think, when you're doing that, will this sell tickets?
We're not thinking about that at all.
Really?
Not at all. If we're thinking about that, then we're not buying the right things. We're not buying things that are moving the story forward. You're buying things that are exciting in the present for reasons, for whatever reasons they are. And those, you're in your head, you're thinking, what are my successors going to think of these choices that we've made here? Are they going to remember us fondly? Because a lot of the things that we're acquiring today will be unaffordable tomorrow.
Right.
We don't have a major Manet, for example, in Canada. Manet's had a big influence on Canadian painting. So that's something we have to consider, is how we're going to be remembered in the future for the decisions we're making now. Because if we don't buy those things now, then people aren't going to be able to afford them and won't be able to tell the story of today.
The reason I ask is about ticket sales is because I've seen stats that say that in the United States, visits to museums are down anywhere from 15 to 20%. And I wonder if do you see that in Canada as well?
Not in our museum, no.
Not at yours?
Just the opposite.
You've had an increase in attendance.
We went from a baseline goal of 300,000 visitors to a goal of 400,000 visitors in the 10 years that I've been there, and we're going to be posting, I think, 418,000 visitors. So we've had a major uptick.
I wonder if one of the reasons is, and we'll put this up here on the screen for all to see, you display art not only inside but outside, which is different. This is Running Horses by Joe, is it Fafard? Is that how he says his name? Joe Fafard. Why did you do this?
Those were acquired by my predecessor, and they were sitting around, and we had no public sculpture in front of the building besides the spider, of course, but as you drive in, I thought, why aren't we putting those things outside? It was a good thing to do because they're extremely popular. We would get nasty, when we took them in the winter, we would get these nasty emails. What did you do? Where are you going with the horses? We really missed them. But they were fragile, so we had to take them in the winter. We've had Joe make a set for us that can be out year-round. So, yeah. So the term that I used at the time is that we want to create a precinct of beauty. And we've put a lot of public sculpture around the gallery so that as you move closer to it, you start saying to yourself, well, that granite and glass building must be an art museum. Look at all the art around here. And it's beautiful and meaningful. So the anticipation of what lays inside, what's waiting for you inside, is announced by the things that you see outside. And people love it.
Another bit of a touchy-feely question here, but what does it take for a young person to become a mature adult who wants to go into museums and see things hanging on walls?
Most people are going to be responsive to art, and the earlier you start, the better. I can't remember how old I was the first time I came to the National Gallery of Canada, but it was the most significant museum that I had seen at that point. I was a child. And it's a treasure house. It's full of wonder. Most children are very responsive to these beautiful things, whether they understand them or not. They realize I'm not at home here and I'm not at school, and it's not like going shopping. It's a very different experience. The earlier the better, always. But I've known people who've come to art later in life who lived in places where there wasn't very much of it and have become aesthetes as full-grown adults. So yeah, there are many different ways to come at it.
In some respects, it's a tricky time because the legacy media are really not covering you anymore in the way they used to, right? Is there an art critic left in a major newspaper in this country? Well,
not in the English language. I think the last art critic in the English language was Murray White, who was at the Toronto Star, who's now moved to Boston. So there are people pinch hitting. There are people who I think probably could do a good job as art critics, but there's very little writing about art in newspapers, for example, and there's next to none of it on television, if at all.
Let's talk digital technology for a second. Here's a quote that I'm going to read. This is out of the New York Times from about 6 months ago regarding the digital technologies in the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. Currently, only a fraction of the museum's trove of works is available to the public at any given time, owing to limited museum real estate and the fragile nature of many of the pieces. Once the realm of academics and aficionados, artworks of all kinds can be brought into living rooms anywhere, and in doing so, keep a range of cultural objects relevant and alive. Quote, I don't fear technology usurping the importance of art and museums. I think technology can make museums and their collections even more inclusive, approachable, and dynamic. So says the head of the Smithsonian. What's your take on that?
Well, I hate to disagree with someone as august as the head of the Smithsonian, but unless you're standing in front of the actual work of art, you're not having an artistic experience. You have no sense of the scale, the actual colors, the textures, how it responds to the other things around it. No, you're not having a cultural experience unless you're before an actual work of art. It's that simple. Technology is very useful for all purposes pedagogical. It can help lure you in. Perfect example, Piet Mondrian. It's really very two-dimensional painting. When you see an actual Piet Mondrian painting, you see how fastidious a craftsman he was, and you wouldn't have expected that from some white and blue and squares with some black stripes. They're handmade objects, and you get a real feeling of wonder about this. The care with which the artist made this object is not available when you're seeing a digital reproduction of it. And it changes the experience. So it's a little bit like Plato's cave. The world is passing by on a screen through shadows. You're not actually in the real world. We're very much living in Plato's cave today. So museums are more and more important because of that.
It's funny, you make the analogy to Plato's cave, and I would make the analogy to going to, I guess, what they now call the Scotiabank Arena. You know, you'll see the Leafs better on TV. There's no question about it. But there's nothing like being there.
There's nothing like being there. The excitement, your own adrenaline is not, it's half of the adrenaline output at home as it would be in the actual arena. You need the people around you because we respond to each other. That's one of the great advantages of any city that has a terrific art museum, is that they're community aggregators. And that sometimes I think people are as excited about having this cultural experience with each other as they are about the cultural experience. That goes for live theater, live performance, sports. Why do people still going in huge numbers and paying these just completely unrealistic amounts of money, it seems to me, to go see a great hockey game or something? It's because it's not the same thing.
Nothing like being there. Having said that, virtual reality is coming. And how do you think museums are going to cope and compete with that?
Well, I think artists are going to be making works of art through virtual reality. They're already starting. For me, I think AR, augmented reality, has a much brighter future in museums than VR, because you've got to put that whole apparatus, where AR, you just have to have your phone. Augmented reality will give you information about this thing that you're seeing, or will help you see it in a different dimension. There are many, many uses for it. I think it's more practical. Artists have always been using new technology. So I think that the experience will change, the artistic experience will change, because artists will be using these tools.
In our last minute and change here, let me ask you about you, the pride of Sudbury, Ontario. Everybody, I don't know about everybody, a lot of people seem to be very interested in what your next move is going to be. As you point out, you've been in this racket for 3 decades right now. You've now had the best job you can get in Canada, doing what you do. So what's next?
I'm glad to hear a lot of people are interested in what I'll be doing. No one's more interested than I am. I don't really know, Steve.
Well, you know you're going to go to the Catskills, to your farm.
Yes, I got a
hang out there for a while.
A little cold comfort farm there. I may have a celebratory cigar after all these years in Ottawa. And I don't know. I have some suitors before me, and I am going to assess their relative merits over the next few weeks.
What kind of suitors?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's too early to say, but I'm very much going to be staying in the art world. That's what I know. That's what I understand.
You're going to be staying in Canada?
There again, I'm not quite sure. It's kind of hard to, you can't go anywhere after the National Gallery. It's going to be a lateral move, or it's going to be something less stressful, perhaps. But I don't know. I have opportunities all over the place.
I bet you do. Thanks a lot for your visits to this studio and for the work you did, and we really appreciate your time here at TVO tonight.
Thanks so much for the invitation.
That's Marc Mayer, outgoing head of the National Art Gallery of Canada.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.